Hello, welcome back to RetroBreak. This week I'm going to be taking a look at a Netflix-style streaming service for retro games called Antstream. It sounds really interesting. They reached out to me on Twitter a few weeks ago to ask me if I'd be interested in checking it out. And as I'm sure you can see behind me, I'm a big fan of collecting physical games. So at first I wasn't entirely sure, but I did a little bit of research and it does sound really interesting, so let's go and have a look at what it's all about. They very kindly set me up with a few months free membership to try it out. The first thing you have to do is go to the website and choose the system you want to download Antstream for. At the minute there's 3 different options. There's Windows, Mac OS and Android. I did ask them what their plans are for supporting more systems in the future and they told me this. They told me that they're currently working on a version for the PlayStation 4 and they'll also be looking into some of the next gen consoles. And they've also had a lot of requests for the Switch and PlayStation Vita. I think it would be absolutely fantastic to be able to use this service on a handheld system. Just dipping in and out to the games whenever you feel like it would be brilliant. And speaking of the games, as you can see here, they're all very nicely laid out by genre on the home screen, much like how modern streaming services display their shows. So it should be immediately accessible to anyone who's used a streaming service over the past few years. There's also a search option if you wanted to try and find a game in particular. I will say though that at the moment it's a little bit light on content. I couldn't find any of the arcade classics I was hoping for. I did however manage to find Metal Slug, which is one of my all-time favourite games.
Start. Thank you.
I did ask what other games and systems they'll be adding to the service in the future. And they told me, in terms of future game additions, their partnership with Atari will offer some great new additions. We will of course also be offering more formats after that as well, but Atari is the only one that they can talk about right now. Atari sounds like a fantastic addition though. If they manage to get games like Clax or Marble Madness, or even something like Paperboy, I think that would go down really well. And as you can see, the game looks and plays just fine. I did notice a few compression artifacts from the streaming, which was a little bit unfortunate, especially considering I have pretty good internet, and even Stadia worked for me. I was actually planning on doing a video about Stadia, but to be honest it was just really boring, so I didn't get around to doing that. Hopefully they'll continue to improve the streaming technology and try to eliminate as much of this as possible. Most of the time though, it did look and play great. And just for reference, here's my internet speeds. So if yours are around the same, here's what you can kind of expect. And on the topic of actually streaming the games, I did actually ask them why streaming rather than downloading the games directly. Nintendo did that with their NES and SNES apps and it works really well. So I asked that and this was the answer that they gave me, which actually makes perfect sense. They said as they continue to add new games to the system, the file size will increase, making downloading them much more difficult. Streaming for them is an easy way of making all the games accessible both now and in the future. And I can definitely see where they're coming from, especially as they add more and more games from different systems and arcade boards as well. So that's a little bit about how the games look and play and a bit about the streaming service, so now let's get back to Antstream. As you can see, there's a few other options along the top of the screen. The first is your player profile. From your player profile tab you can also see all the challenges that you completed, as well as all the achievements that you've unlocked throughout playing the games on the system, and you can also check out some social features like adding people as friends and sending them messages. And you can also add games to a favourites list, which will appear at the end here. As you can see on the top right as well, the more you play the games, the more experience points you get, which work towards getting you to the next level. There's also a gems system, and you can use these gems to unlock some extra challenges. The challenges are actually one of the most interesting features of Antstream, because they're actually something that would never have been possible in the original games. They're basically small sections of the game which challenge you to do something specific, for example to see how far you can get without dying, or see how far you can make it into the game with only using a specific attack type. They're really fun and they definitely add a lot more longevity to the games and give you a good reason to go back and keep playing them again and again. It's a great way to get you to come back to the service as they're constantly adding new challenges. I actually got quite addicted to trying this one. One thing I had to know though was how often are these challenges going to be updated, and the same with the games list as well, how often will it be until we get new games on the service. And they told me at the moment it's variable, they haven't added anything since just before Christmas, but up until that point they were adding new challenges and games on almost a weekly basis. They said they're currently working on some new titles and hopefully these will be going up at regular intervals in the future. But they did say it takes a long time to set up these games and challenges, which I completely understand, but their aim is to bring new content on a fairly regular basis. So they won't be updating the games exactly once a week, but hopefully they will still be fairly regular updates. Now the games themselves. They're mostly old UK based games for systems like the Spectrum, the Commodore 64 or the Amiga, which is fantastic for someone like me who's very much interested in the history of games in the UK but never actually had a chance to play any of these games when I was younger. It's been a great way for me to find out about games that I'd never even heard of and give them a go, especially considering how fast it is for the games to load. If I was to go game shopping and pick up a bunch of C64 games to try out, I'd be there all day just waiting to play them. And if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know that's definitely something that's happened before. So for this reason, I think Antstream is a fantastic way of finding out about some classics. I've actually been going through Antstream and adding some of these games to my eBay watch list, just because I've loved playing them so much and I would love to pick up a physical copy of some of them. When you've chosen a game to play and you click into it, it comes up with a really nice display screen that gives you a bit of information about the game, including who made it and when it was first released, as well as any challenges that have been set up for the game or a high scores list. And you can also have a look at other similar games. I love the fact that there's challenges and high scores. It really makes the games have a lot more replay value, and I love the social aspect of it as well. It's something that in the past I only really got by leaving post-it notes on the games and letting my friends try and beat my high scores. This one just opens up the possibilities to so many more people getting involved with playing retro games, which is just fantastic, and I presume that's the whole reason that Antstream was invented in the first place. So from that point of view, I think they've absolutely hit the nail on the head with this one. So when you press play to start the game up, you're first greeted with a quick how to play screen, which shows you the controls for a gamepad, keyboard or touchscreen, as well as some information on how to actually play the game. One thing I will point out, it's not compatible with every controller. I tried it with the Stadia controller and unfortunately it didn't work. The controller that they recommended to me to use was an Xbox One wireless controller, so that's the one I've been using to capture all this footage, and I just connected it through Bluetooth to the computer and it plays absolutely fine. I'd say if you're unsure about which controllers work or not, have a look on the website. One interesting thing with the touchscreen controls though, even though I'm playing this on a Mac which doesn't have a touchscreen, it still actually has the touchscreen control overlay on the screen itself, and at first I thought the red button on the side was actually a screen recording feature, but it turns out that it was just the action button for the game, and when you click it, it does actually respond, although I don't think anyone would actually want to play the games this way, so maybe that's a little bit of an oversight on their part and hopefully they'll fix that in a future update. So while I was playing through some of these games, another question struck me. How do the IP owners and the companies actually get paid for having their games on the service? They couldn't exactly tell me because of NDAs and such, but they did say that every contract is different. They don't have a one-size-fits-all approach, as the IP holders will have different needs that must be met, and it's really important to them that they do meet those needs. They want everyone to be happy with every deal we do legally to offer these games. And that's one thing that I really appreciate with this. It's all completely legal, unlike the grey area of ROMs and emulation, which is probably how most people have played these games in the past. Unless they do have an extensive collection of old ZX Spectrum and Commodore games, which a lot of people probably don't, especially if you're the kind of person who wants to try this service out. Of course, one question that's probably on most people's minds is this actually a sustainable model for retro games, and what are their plans for the future? They told me that their plans are to continue to grow and add games and challenges to the service. There's hundreds of thousands of retro games for them to work through, and they don't plan on stopping there, and they want to work their way through the years, which sounds really interesting. They have some big titles soon, but unfortunately they can't announce anything just yet. They believe that their business model is long-term sustainable due to the accessibility it brings to so many people, plus the fact that it also gives the IP holders a place for their old titles that are no longer in circulation. So I was thinking I'm probably not exactly the target audience for Antstream, considering I already have a pretty sizable collection of retro games. So one of the questions I asked them was, what is the target audience for Antstream? And their answer does actually make a lot of sense. Let's have a look at what they had to say. They said, our target audience is anyone who likes games. We believe that the obvious audience are those that played the games when they were grown up, but don't have a means or the shelf space for a collection themselves. However, they've also found great success in the student market, as they offer so many games in one place all for a good price. And in the family market as well, where younger gamers can be introduced to a whole new world of games they've never seen. Plus their parents get to show off a bit as they show them how to play games from 30 plus years ago. And even if I'm not the target audience, I've definitely had a good time using the system, so I bet anyone in any of those demographics is going to really enjoy it. So when I went into this, I wasn't really expecting to enjoy it, as I'm a big believer in playing retro games on their original hardware. But Antstream definitely has its uses and it's really surprised me. It has a great layout and the added challenges and experience system make it really fun to come back to again and again, and it gives the games a bit more longevity. Overall, I'd say definitely go and check it out. If you go on the website, there's a 7-day free trial, so you can actually see if you enjoy it before you decide to put any money down. I really hope you've enjoyed this overview of Antstream. If any of you do decide to go and check it out, definitely go and add me as a friend on there. My username is RetroBreak, and let's try and do some challenges together and see if you can beat any of my high scores. That would be really fun. So there's just one more very important question before I wrap this video up, and I've definitely saved the best till last, and I bet it's one you've all been thinking. Why exactly did they name it Antstream? They would love to say that it was written in the stars or passed on from a fortune teller, but the idea is much more simple than that. The games are all very small and require a lot of teamwork to bring to fruition. What's small and works in teams? Ants. So there you go, I hope this has answered all of your questions. So I really hope you enjoyed checking out Antstream with me. I'm sorry if my voice was a little bit off this week, but I'm still suffering from the cold that I had last time. Hope that didn't stop your enjoyment of the video though. I've got loads more amazing things coming in the weeks to come. So of course, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next week for the next episode. Goodbye!